Countdown to Halloween 2023, featuring eerie and uncanny tales of haunts, ghosts, and suspense. October is finally here. Join us all month for special Halloween presentations on Storylink Radio's YouTube channel as we count down to Halloween 2023. Keep a close eye on YouTube alerts or you'll miss one. Celebrate October with us right here and now. Tonight's presentation from Storylink Radio. Feast of the Hungry Ghosts. Lubo helped his mother hang the last of the tiny white paper lanterns on the porch.
There, she said, and smiled at her son. They look beautiful. Our ancestors would be so pleased.
The boy groaned.
Mom, our ancestors couldn't care less about whether or not we decorate our back porch. Do not be disrespectful, she scolded him gently. I know you do not see the value in our traditions, but the Feast of the Hungry Ghosts means a great deal to your grandparents. They will only be here for 3 days. You please try not to spoil it for them. But, Mom, it's so stupid to make a meal for dead people and leave it at the cemetery, Lubo whined, especially since our relatives aren't even in the cemetery. They're in China.
Lubo shook his head. His mother gave him a warning look.
That is enough, young man.
Just then a girl with long dark hair peeked around the side of the house.
Hi, Lubo. Hi, Mrs. Chang,
she said, smiling and looking at the lanterns.
Oh, what pretty decorations. Good morning, Zuli,
Lubo's mom responded. Lubo grabbed his catcher's mitt and headed for the gate.
Gotta go, Mom. Zuli and I'll be late for softball practice. You come straight home afterward, she called out to her son. Your grandparents will be arriving this afternoon. You hear?
Lubo's family had come to the United States from China, but he had been born here. He was embarrassed by some of the customs they still followed. In particular, he disliked the Feast of the Hungry Ghosts. It is celebrated to honor family ancestors by preparing a special meal and offering gifts to the dead. He and his family would set up the meal at the cemetery and eat right there. This sounds like fun. When they finished, they would leave food and gifts for the departed. Lubo was silent as he and Zhu Li walked along, pushing their bikes.
Well, your grandparents are coming too, huh? Zhu Li sighed. Mine arrived last night. Are your folks going to make you go to the cemetery? Yeah, Lubo said with obvious irritation. I guess it'd be different if the graves of our ancestors were here, Zhu Li reasoned. It's kind of creepy, though, going out to that old cemetery on Gallardi Road. I'm glad we only have to go in the morning.
Lubo nodded.
Yeah, my dad told me it's the only place that allows the ceremonies to be held. There's a lot of families here that still want to do it like they did in the old country, but they don't have a gravesite to go to. Some Chinese families actually have their relatives buried there, and they've agreed to share a common area on the grounds with the others. It isn't exactly the same as visiting your relatives, but Mom said it's the spirit of the celebration that counts. Spirit of the celebration, she said.
Zhu Li kicked at a pebble on the sidewalk and watched it skitter into the gutter.
I suppose your grandparents, when our grandparents die, the tradition will die too. Well, I'm certainly not going to keep going to do it if I don't have to, Lubo laughed.
When Lubo returned, his grandparents had arrived. His grandmother was in the kitchen with his mom preparing special dishes, including savory dumplings and tangerine cakes for the feast the following day.
Will you be making an offering, grandson? His grandfather asked in a formal tone. Yeah, I guess so, Lubo responded uncomfortably. I hadn't really thought about it.
Grandpa Chang held up a crooked finger and wagged it at the boy. You would be wise to think about it carefully if you wish your ancestors to protect you from the others.
What others, Grandpa?
Lubo asked. Nodding as if agreeing with an unseen guess, the old man finally answered. The others. The forsaken ones, boy. They are angry. They seek revenge.
Come again? Lubo said, becoming more interested. You mean like ghosts?
Yes. Spirits who died without family or rejected by their family. They become angry at the sight of such festivities in honor of others. These spiteful ghosts wait until darkness falls. Then they roam in search of vengeance on any living being who ventures out into the night. Trying not to smile or laugh, Lubo cast a sidelong glance at his father and then asked,
Oh, and what do they do?
His grandfather's tone became ominous. They devour them.
He really believes it, too.
Lubo snickered as he told Zhu Li the next morning the story that his grandpa told him. They were helping to carry the trays from the family's car to their side of the graveyard.
This place gives me the willies, Zuli said with a visible shudder. You don't think there are any of those angry ghosts around here, do you? Oh, Lubo rolled his eyes in disbelief. I don't think there are any kind of ghosts or anywhere. They're just a lot of very silly people believe what they've been told. He pointed to the crowd of families gathered into small groups. Those with relatives buried in the cemetery were preparing for the ritual beside the graves. Others were setting out their things in a large central garden. The families whose ancestors were buried somewhere else had taken up a collection to build a decorative pond under a grove of lacy-leafed willows. The pond was surrounded by colorful beds of daisies. Here and there stood stone benches used by some of the older folks to sit and contemplate the meaning of the day. Lubo knelt to place his tray on the silky, bright red cloth that his mom had spread on the ground. Zuli's face lit up when he uncovered the food. Wow, ginger chicken's my favorite. And your mom is such a good cook. The aroma of warm chicken coated with sweet plum sauce filled the air. Yeah, Lubo agreed. I prefer to eat this at home, not in the company of a bunch of corpses. Zuli reached down and plucked some thinly sliced ginger from her plate. A ghost is going to get you for that, she said, laughing as she popped the ginger into her mouth. Well, I guess I better go help my folks. Send me a slice of your mom's tangerine cake, okay? Within an hour, the formal ceremony was over, and Lubo joined Zuli at the pond. Along with several other children, she was setting tiny foil paper boats into the water with an offering of a sweet almond in each one. The slowly sinking boats glittered in the sunlight. Did you see some of the things people are leaving here? Lubo observed in astonishment. Some of the bowls and trays, they look like solid silver. I saw Mrs. Yi put out a cup that was inlaid with jade. Zuli barely looked up. Yeah, this is a very special feast, Lubo. So those who can afford it really go all out. But they'll come back and pick the things up tomorrow when they're empty, after the ghosts eat their fill. The ghosts eat their... Now you're starting to sound like my grandfather. It's more likely that mice and opossums help themselves with the food. Lubo stared in the water for a moment, then a smile spread across his face. You may have a point, though. What do you mean? If a few trays and goblets weren't here in the morning, the old folks would think their ancestors had taken them away. Zuli twisted her mouth in a frown. Why would things be missing, Lubo? Lubo grinned. Because we're going to come back tonight and take them. Are you crazy? The girl's mouth dropped open. Not at all, said Lubo, talking fast as he hatched his plan. It's a great idea. We could sell this stuff and make a lot of money, and the superstitious old geezers would be thrilled if their offerings were accepted. It's not really stealing. We'd be doing them a big favor. Zuli was not convinced. But we'd have to come back here at night, Lubo. I don't want to do that. Why not? What are you afraid of? The angry ghosts, the girl muttered, staring at the unattended graves in the oldest part of the ceremony. That's just mumbo-jumbo, Zuli. You know it, Lubo chided. Look, no one's going to get hurt. Still uncertain, Zuli finally gave in to Lubo's pleadings. Zuli let her bike drop to the ground. It hardly made a sound on the soft earth. The half moon bathed the silent cemetery in a ghoulish blue light. She pushed open the low metal gate that was only opening in the cumbering thick wall. Rarely she made her way to the pond and called out in a hoarse whisper, Lubo! Lubo! Suddenly a figure leapt at her from behind a tree. No! She screamed and started to run. It's me! Lubo hissed, grabbing her by the wrist. The girl was almost in tears. That wasn't funny, Lubo. Maybe you should just do this by yourself. I'm sorry, Zuli, Lubo said, letting his backpack slip down onto one arm. You're right. Come on. We'll be done in no time. The willow trees cast long, grotesque shadows across the burial stones as the two walked to the first grave. Lubo picked up an ebony bowl and dumped out the vegetables it contained. He studied the empty bowl for a moment. Wow, these designs look like they're made out of gold wire. I'll bet this is worth a lot. Shh! What was that? Zuli whispered. From behind them came a low shuffling noise. Lubo felt the hairs on his neck begin to rise. I don't know, but it's getting closer. The two children dropped to their knees and cringed behind a massive gravestone. Moment by moment, the noise grew louder. It was the sound of footsteps. Slow, steady footsteps. The shadow of a figure fell across the stone. Lubo and Zuli clutched at each other in terror. What are you doing here? Someone demanded in a menacing tone. Lubo stuttered, trying nearly impossible to speak. The figure moved closer, and as it did, Lubo and Zuli could see it was a boy, a little older than themselves. Why are you here? The boy questioned sharply. You've come for the offerings, haven't you? Well, they're mine. You better leave while you still can. Lubo felt his fear recede like an outgoing tide. It was just another kid with the same idea they had. Why should we leave? Lubo said confidently. There's two of us, only one of you. Do you know that for certain? The bigger boy snarled. Lubo glanced around. He didn't see anyone else, but he decided not to take chances. Hey, look, Lubo said to the stranger. There's a lot of stuff here, enough for all of us. And this isn't the best of it. I saw a cup over in the pond that looked like it was carved from a single piece of jade. Moonlight streamed and shimmered on the still waters of the pond. The boy hesitated, and the corners of his mouth turned up in a neat, greedy grin. Without another word, he sauntered in the direction that Lubo had indicated. As soon as the stranger disappeared behind the trees, Lubo stuffed several items into his backpack. But Zhu Li didn't help. She was staring toward the oldest part of the cemetery. Her hand trembling, she pointed in that direction. Lubo, look! Something's moving out there. It's them! It's the hungry ghosts! Straining to search the shadows, Lubo too saw movement. Yeah, there's something out there, all right. That creep really didn't come here alone. Come on, let's go, he urged Zhu Li. Crouching low, they sprinted toward the cemetery gate. Zhu Li reached it first and tugged it with all of her might. It's stuck, she sobbed. Oh, let me do it, Lubo ordered, yanking at the thick metal bars. With a squeal, the gate began to open. Leaving so soon. The two spun around to face the older boy. His face was twisted into a savage expression. And taking something with you, I see. With shaking hands, Lubo lifted the backpack up. Here, you can have it. All we want to do is leave. The kid stepped closer and grabbed the backpack. Opening it, he reached in and pulled out the ebony bowl. Okay, Lubo said, trying to control his fear. Over the boy's shoulder, he could see the others moving toward them, too. You and your friends have what you want. Now we're going to go. He took Zhu Li's hand. With an evil grin, the boy raised the bowl over his head and threw it to the ground. It broke into several large pieces. We don't want these stupid trinkets, boy. They will not satisfy our hunger. Slowly his body seemed to swirl and expand. Behind him the other phantoms approached, their eyes transfixed on the horrified children. No! Zhu Li screamed. It's true! They're real! And that was the last sound that Lubo ever heard.
You've just heard tonight's story from Storylink Radio's Countdown to Halloween 2023. Remember to come back for our next tale. Many more stories of all genres available to listen to and read along with now on our website at www.storylinkradio.com. Visit our YouTube channel at youtube.com/storylinkradio. And visit our podcast for easy mobile listening anywhere, anytime. Just search for Storylink Radio on your favorite podcast provider. Oh, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button and click that alert bell for Storylink Radio.